It's not about politics. It's about football.
This is a simple game.
We're going to run the ball, and we're going to pass the ball. We're just going to play football, really.
How good of a football player are you?
I just get in and try to spin it. That's all.
I just love the game.
It really is the best time of the year.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to It's Just Football here on a beautiful Monday morning, which can only mean one thing. We've got brand new football to talk about. The social clips, the tape, the stats, everything. It's going to be a fantastic show. So glad that you guys are here with me. Trevor Sikkema here with Mike Renner. Mike, how was the weekend? Not just NFL, college football too. How did we enjoy it? How did we watch it? What was the setup?
It was a lot better. Truly, when, last week sitting here at the same time after Notre Dame and the Packers had lost in very disappointing fashion, and your boy was down bad. But this Monday, a little different energy. So, yeah, the college football slate was great. NFL slate had a much better time. Yesterday was wild. There were some games on the slate that you don't see every week. So.
There is a lot going on in the NFL that I would say we did not predict. Mm-hmm. Like, there are just results that are happening. And this happens every year, right? This is week one. This is how we feel. Or not week one anymore, but it's the early parts of the season, and we're just seeing either coaches not exactly putting guys into certain situations, executing, not executing. Like, there have been tons of things to talk about. We're going to get into a lot of things. Here's we recap all the games on this show. We're going to try to give you a little bit from every game that we possibly can. We're going to give you guys a Dog of the Week, which is a new segment that we're doing, talking about giving some props to some players who really deserve it around the NFL. We're going to, of course, give you some Monday Night previews as well. We're going to do a little bit of bragging, some bold predictions, from myself at least, that came true, and I got to brag whenever I get it right. But we also want to hear from you guys. Of course, this is a show where we're heavily leaning on you guys to chat. We want to make it as chat-friendly as possible. So let us know what you guys thought of the weekend. Tell us about your favorite team, a game that caught your eye, a performance that caught your eye, something as we get through this. We'd love to hear from you as well. I also want to introduce the guys behind the glass. We got Saab, we got Stone, we got Quinn, we got Eli in the production suite. Fellas, how we feeling today? How we doing?
Been better. I'm still not ready
Bengals. I see from the Bengals jacket. I figured that you probably could have been better.
I'm not going to push the panic button just yet. They got the Jets. They got the Jets, the Saints, the Falcons, the Panthers, and the Browns all before the bye week.
I mean, it's got to be at least 3 wins for them.
Yeah, I don't feel confident about them against anybody, but like if there was ever a chance for them to get right, like the schedule gods are doing them a favor.
You were absolutely crazy for ranking them as the number 5 team still in the NFL.
I'm not sure I'm crazy. I will see how that shakes out in a few weeks, but it didn't look good, obviously, immediately. But I still think the talent is there to be a top 5 team. Now, they have issues that go beyond that. We'll talk about that.
Yeah,
but the talent is still there, in my opinion.
Quinn, do we have a question of the day? Do we have something to get the chat riled up?
Yeah,
today?
we do have a question of the day.
Okay.
So 2 weeks in, obviously. A lot of people, not myself, but a lot of people are overreacting about maybe like what their teams are doing or not doing thus far. So who do you think will be the first coach fired? Even though we're only 2 weeks into the season, people are already kind of talking about that, speculating. Who do you guys think is going to be the first guy to get canned?
Okay, I'm not going to say my answer yet because actually we're probably going to get into this a little bit further into the show. But I have seen a lot of people freak out on social media already about this, so I'm curious what everybody who's watching the show thinks. Who you guys think the first head coach is that's going to be fired? We got 4 0-2 teams, so it could be from the 0-2 teams, but also there have been some teams that are 1-1 that don't look really great either. So I'm curious to hear what people think of who the first head coach is going to be fired.
It's Matt Rule. It's going to be Matt Rule.
You think it's going to be Matt Rule? You're already
it's
playing
Matt
the flag.
Rule or Cliff Kingsbury. And halfway through yesterday's game, I would have said for sure Cliff Kingsbury. But we shall see how that plays out after the massive comeback win. But it's, to me, one of those two, more likely than not.
First 3 answers are already Matt Rule in the chat.
Yes.
We do have some Frank Reich, though.
They trust that regime too much. Jim Irsay's giving them too much of a leash. They're signed both through 2026 or 2027 already. Like, they got extensions last year.
Yeah.
So, I get they didn't make the playoffs. Yeah, it's been an awful start for them. Faced the number 1 and number 3 overall picks last year, and you're 0-1-1.
Yeah.
But I don't think they're canning him anytime soon.
I would agree with that. I think that's a discussion that we can get into when we kind of highlight all the games. We put the scoreboard up there and we give our thoughts on it. But before we get to that, I want to remind you guys that we've got a little survey that we have right under the YouTube channel if you guys are watching this live. And basically, we want to hear from you guys. We want to know what you want to hear from. Do you want to hear more game analysis? Do you want more of the refreshes timeline segments where we go through the great social clips? Just let us know. It's a way for us to keep tabs on you guys to see what you really want from this show. Let's start off with some refreshes timeline, though. Let's go through the Sunday Twitter timeline that was yesterday because it's always an absolute goldmine. The first one, we're going to go to the booth of the Los Angeles Rams Atlanta Falcons game, where butt fumble extraordinaire, Jets legend Mark Sanchez was in the booth as the color commentator, and Mike, he was letting it fly.
Yeah.
No filter on this guy. Listen to what he said, what he had to say in one of these clips.
I mean, Shelton's clearing out defenders faster than a teenager clears his search history on his web browser. Holy smokes.
I heard that when I was watching the broadcast, and I had to double take, triple take. I was like, there's no way he just said that. There's no way he just said that. And he did. And actually, as the game went on, he had a couple other great one-liners too.
He
shook him like a cocktail. That was one that he had. He had on a beautiful pass, I think, from Matt Stafford to Cooper Kupp. He said it's one thing to drop it in the bucket. He dropped it in a shot glass, a red Solo Cup.
Or a red Solo Cup. He was trying to party. Mark Sanchez was trying to be the cool announcer there. And honestly, I liked it. A little more personality can go a long way in the booth. Half these guys are dry as can be and don't add anything to a game, and you'd rather have the game on mute than actually listen to them. So I liked it. Mark Sanchez trying a little something new, and I'm a fan.
I liked it too. He was having fun. You and I looked it up right before the show. I was like, is this Mark Sanchez's first year in the booth? Because if so, my man's coming out of the gate hot. It's his second year.
Yeah.
He did a little bit of color commentary last year for these games. And so, look, second year, full confidence. Last year, he was probably a little buttoned up. He'd never done it before. He was probably wanting to play by the rules. But now he's like,
it's like the rookie.
Sanchez is back,
It's like the rookie QB. First year, you're not going to look good in a new environment. Second year, all of a sudden, he's Mahomes. So big fan.
BJ saying that he was rehearsing that at home hard. Of course you do. Yes. You got to have your lines.
You have a piece of paper with all that shit written down on the side of it. Of course you do.
Yeah.
Or else you're going to be scrambling to think of anything in the middle of a game. It's difficult.
Sanchez is like coming up with his game notes, like good stats for players, storylines that he wants to highlight, and also one-liners.
Porn talking points, things like that. How can I incorporate drinking and all the debauchery that I do?
I know that there are games played with broadcasters and sometimes like players and head coaches for press conferences after the game where they're supposed to, they have a little bet, okay, if you can sneak this word into it, you win. I'll give you like $10 or $50 or whatever. I wonder if Mark Sanchez is just with his buddies and they're like, all right, talk about porn search history on a teenager's computer, and Sanchez bet $100, easiest one I've ever made. But I don't know, I thought that was a lot of fun listening to it. That was good stuff there. Okay, the next refresh the timeline that we have. It's from Devin White. Big win for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. My Tampa Bay Buccaneers over the New Orleans Saints. Doesn't happen often, in New Orleans especially. But after the game, Bucs linebacker Devin White had some, he didn't sugarcoat it. He didn't sugarcoat what his thoughts were about his old former quarterback, Jameis Winston, who is now on the other side of things.
I mean, when Jameis left our team, everybody know what he did that last year. And we feel like we had a great defense then. And, he threw 30 picks, and we just knew he would give us the ball. We knew the running backs, cough it up. And that's something we came in talking about. We want 30 turnovers as a ball club ourselves. So this just was another game to go attack the ball.
Was it over the line, Mike?
No, it's not. It's because it's true. The truth
he wasn't wrong.
The truth will set you free, as they say. And I want more players to speak their minds after the games and give us their honest opinions, because that is who Jameis is. He oddly has this thing about interceptions and downfield passes that the more bad ones he throws, the more inopportune chances he takes, the more he digs in his heels and says, I got to take another. I got to make up for that with another play down the football field. And he was just throwing it all. He was just airing it out. 12.9 average depth of target. It was pretty absurd to watch it, and they were just overmatched. I mean, I called this Bucs defense the best defense in the NFL a week ago. I still believe it. That's why I ranked them so high.
Yeah.
In the power rankings, the #1 overall teams, because they're going to give everyone fits. There's nowhere to attack on this defense. So, if you are going to attack, might as well take your shots down the football field, because they were not going to sustain drives.
Yeah, obviously taking the shots on the football field, Devin White taking the shots after the game there. I will say that after the game was over, after that interview happened, I don't know if you saw this, but Leonard Fournette on the plane ride home back to Tampa got on IG Live while he was on the plane. And while he was on the plane, just sitting there on Instagram Live, Chris Godwin came up to Devin White and he was like, yo, why'd you say that stuff about Jameis? Like, what's up? And Devin White basically like said back to him, he's like, what, are you playing friends now? Like, he's on the other team. What do you mean? And Leonard actually had to say to Godwin, who was right behind him, he was like, yo, I'm on Instagram Live. And then Chris Godwin was immediately like, oh, what's up, everybody? And then like basically dipped after that because a little dangerous when you start getting on IG Live right after the game. I know the emotions are flying, but look, Devin White could certainly say.
I want to know who tunes into those IG Lives.
Dude, everybody. What do you mean?
Are there people out? I guess like diehard fans. Is that like?
But I'm looking to get that exact thing.
Yeah,
like
I've never tuned into one.
Oh, dude, you got to do it.
Are they lit?
I mean, I don't know if they're lit because like sometimes players are literally just standing in the locker room.
That's what it feels like. There's not good content.
A lot of times the players are just trying to read the comments. Like they'll basically go live just to sit there and read everybody go crazy about the game, whether it was a Bucs fan or whether it was a Saints fan talking shit or whatever. Like that's basically what they're doing. But every now and then, like with Antonio Brown, with the Pittsburgh Steelers, or like we saw with the Bucs yesterday, you can get a little background noise in there too, which is why I don't know if these guys should be doing that. But hey, you know what? It's up to them. They're allowed to do whatever they want. And Devin White's, I guess, allowed to do whatever he wants, taking a shot at Jameis Winston. No love lost there with them being on opposite teams. They certainly heard a lot about how the Bucs can't win against New Orleans in the regular season, and that was a big win yesterday for them. So the last refresh of time that we have here, it's not the last social clip. We'll be giving you guys stuff throughout the show. Russ is cooked. That is what PointBet Sportsbook tweeted out, saying that Russell Wilson has played so poorly to start the season that we are giving away a free bet to everyone who placed a bet on Russell Wilson to win MVP. What?
I appreciate the social media hustle. Obviously, trying to generate headlines. We're talking about it here.
We are talking about it. They did a job.
Truthfully, I don't think Russ himself is cooked. I just think it's a bad match right now. I think it's Nathaniel Hackett plus Russ, plus the new offense, plus all these like moving parts that have not come together in a impressive way, quite obviously, through the first 2 weeks of the season, that I'm worried if I'm a Broncos fan right now, because you gave him the extension before you ever saw how this was going to turn out. And now you have to live with it. There's no going back. Like you are stuck here no matter how it looks for the next handful of years. So I don't believe Russ is cooked. I honestly think he played all right yesterday. Just a lot of throws into tight coverage from the Texans. Much improved secondary. But, yeah, the Broncos, people picking them to compete in the West, they look night and day from the Chiefs in charge at the moment.
I think there was reason on paper to believe in the Broncos, right? But there were, I think most people, myself included, I wanted to see it before I believed it. There were times when I was filling out our final standings where I was like, Broncos, I kind of like what they got. Russ has been a winner the entire time that he was in Seattle. You're putting him in there. Hopefully Nathaniel Hackett's a great head coach. And a lot of that stuff is just not living up to expectations right away, especially with Hackett. Hackett looks overwhelmed as a head coach right now. I don't know who the game manager coach is that's supposed to be helping him out with time management and timeouts and in-game situations, but he looks like they haven't prepared. He looks like they haven't prepared for this stuff. You're getting delay of games. You're getting multiple delay of games. The home crowd was chanting the play clock. At that point, that's how embarrassing it was getting. It's not good, Mike.
Turns down, what was it, like a 57-yarder yesterday? A week after settling for a 64-yarder. Turns down then a much shorter field goal to punt the football yesterday. It's like the disconnect there in your decision-making is what's worrisome, because it kind of seems like you're just flying by the seat of your pants then. That you don't really have a plan of attack. You're not going into these games prepared. You're kind of just, whatever situation arises, you're panicking and making what's been the wrong call, truthfully, through a couple weeks so far for the Broncos.
All right, let's take a look at all of the games. We've got a final scoreboard recap here for you guys. We hope it's a good way to be able to touch on certain things as we get to show you the final scores for all of these teams. But, Mike, what's something that really stood out to you? When you look at all of these results, we've got them on the screen now. What's a game that really caught your eye for one reason or another?
Well, it's a team that scored more points than anyone else this week. It's Miami Dolphins. My Lord. That offense is scary. And I kind of alluded to it last week, that they handled the Patriots and they didn't even play well, I didn't think. Going back and watching the tape, they had a lot of missed opportunities. And I think the Ravens found that out, how difficult it is to deal with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. One Tyreek Hill is a game changer, and they have the closest thing to Tyreek Hill in the NFL. and that's Jalen Waddle. Those guys are 1 and 2 in the NFL in receiving yards right now, 1 and 2 in yards per route.
Yep.
This offense, Mike McDaniel, it's schemed very well to avoid Tua's kind of weaknesses. They don't attack outside the numbers. It's underneath or it's deep, and Tua's been very accurate to this point in the season and taking advantage of it. And that was the most confident I've seen him play. The throw to Mike Gesicki. I said literally before that play, I'm like, Tua never converts this. Went back and looked. That was only the second time he's actually ever converted a 3rd and long by throwing the ball past the sticks. A new Tua with that type of receiving weapons, that's a big boy win there on the road against
a lot of people have been talking about this, but it's a game that could be a statement game for Mike McDaniel to maybe be coach of the year in the end. We've got a long way until that, but he is not only putting Tua in a more comfortable situation, but he's also making the most out of his offensive weapons, right? 19 targets for Jalen Waddle yesterday, 13 targets for Tyreek Hill. He is getting these guys the football no matter what. We look at some other stats that we've got here. Lions, Commanders. Jared Goff, okay? Bear with me here. On throws of 10 or more yards down the field versus the Commanders. 7 of 11, 142 yards, 3 touchdowns, 146.8 passer rating. We believe it in Jared Goff a little bit?
Lions offense through 2
weeks. A little bit?
I'm believing in this
30
offensive
plays?
line.
Yeah.
This offensive line held up well against top 3 D-line in the NFL, Washington Commanders. And if you shut down the Commanders' D-line, obviously their secondary back end nowhere near the same teeth. But this is a Lions offensive line that very well could be the best in all of football. I mean, it's right up there with the Eagles. And then we obviously saw them go to battle week 1 to where that gives you a high floor offensively. If your quarterback's not going to be under pressure, if your running game's going to work pretty much every week, that's why teams love to build through the trenches. I do believe this Lions offense, much different animal than we saw a year ago.
Jets, baby. Jets absolutely stealing that win over the Cleveland Browns. That was beautiful to see. Great to see Robert Saleh get off the schneid there this season with a big win in Cleveland. Cleveland, big time collapse there. That's another part of the story that definitely has to be talked about. Jags Colts 24-0, man. Hand up, I had the Colts winning that division. I thought that it was going to be the Colts division. I thought it was going to be easy as well. This Colts team looks bad out of the gate. Their best players are not playing well. Matt Ryan's certainly not playing well. We had a lot of votes for Frank Reich to maybe be the first coach fired. And for everybody who's just joining the show, that was our question of the day. Who do you think is going to be the first coach fired in the NFL? It's not looking good for Frank Reich. Comes out of the gate incredibly slow. Last week, barely is able to, they didn't even beat the Texans. They tied the Texans, and then you get shut out by the Jags? Come on. It's got to be easier than this. That roster is way too talented to be punching at that level with the Jags, who, I don't mean to disrespect the Jags. I have them winning 7 games this year. I think they're going to be a lot better. But shut out? Come on. You're supposed to be the most talented team in the division, and they have not proven that at any point so far this year.
Yeah, I am definitely pushing the panic button on the Indianapolis Colts at this point in time because those aren't – the Jags are much improved, but the Texans really aren't that much improved. They should not have been hanging around with these two teams as poorly as they did. If they have serious Super Bowl aspirations, not just win the division. They were the division favorite. Not just that, but you're paying Chris Ballard this money. You're extending Frank Reich. You're this committed to them because you think they can build a Super Bowl caliber roster, Super Bowl team. This team doesn't look close to that right now.
Nope.
They would get dusted on a neutral field against any of the top dogs in the AFC to where, I'm very worried if I'm a Colts fan.
Yep. I agree. I wanted to shout out Lamar Jackson, too, before we moved on because we touched on the Dolphins. I think a lot of people are going to touch on the Dolphins because Tua is such a hot-button topic, right? Everybody wants to talk about what's going on in Miami. But on the other side of things, Lamar Jackson was brilliant once again. I thought he was good last week. I thought he was even better this week, right? I mean, you've got over 300 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, had over 100 yards rushing. This should have been a statement game for Lamar Jackson. It ends up not being the case because Ravens really couldn't rush the ball in the second half, could not take care of that lead, especially on late downs, third downs. It felt like they could not convert when going back to their bread and butter, the ground game. And so that's a big reason why Miami was allowed back in it, ultimately wins that game. But I still believe in the Ravens. I still think that they're one of the best teams in the NFL. I still think that they were able to show that last week, even though they didn't end up getting the victory over the Dolphins. So wanted to shout out Lamar Jackson, potentially on an MVP path here.
Yeah, you just look at the North. Look at the rest of the teams, how they've looked. The Browns just lose to the Jets. Obviously, they're kind of behind the 8 ball until Deshaun Watson comes back. The Bengals just stumbling flat on their face out the gate. And the Pittsburgh Steelers offense just anemic. So Ravens, yeah, they're 1-1. Yeah, they're obviously now tied with Steelers first and the Browns for first place in that division. But quite clearly, through 2 weeks, the best team in that division.
We had 2 bold predictions that we gave at the end of last week that I want to revisit now, and I want to revisit it because I was right. I said my bold prediction was going to be Drake London, first touchdown in the NFL. And you know what?
Cash that check.
It happened, baby. 12. Drake, I mean, you knew that they have been emphasizing this guy anytime that he has been healthy and on the field. So it was not the boldest of bold calls I've ever had because it felt like he was always going to be the focal point of what they were doing. Mm-hmm. But he gets done. Congrats to Drake London. First touchdown, hopefully, of many in his NFL career. That was my bold prediction, and it came true.
Yeah, London's been as advertised, right? He's wide receiver 1 off the board.
Yes, sir.
Great overall pick, and kind of just hit the ground running. No real learning curve for London out the gate, and that's very encouraging for a guy who was 20 years old when he was drafted. A very young receiver coming out. And also coming off a fairly major ankle injury that he suffered towards the end of last season to show no ill effects. I think perfect fit for this offense. And one of the biggest reasons why the Falcons, they're 0-2, but they've been competitive against 2 possible playoff teams here.
Your bold prediction,
not
as great.
Fell on its face, not by actual performance, but Trey Lance, the injury.
Yeah.
Brutal. I said he was going to lead all players in fantasy points this week. Was somewhat on his way, was okay. Obviously, it's the first quarter. Had a red zone opportunity that he did not convert on. But, yeah, that's a gruesome leg injury.
That's bad.
Yeah. Bad. He out for the year. It's already.
It's a tough situation for them, right? Because Trey Lance hasn't had more than 2 games in a single season as a starter since 2019.
Because he has to play football. Exactly, yeah.
Right. Since 2019. We're talking 4 years ago. Trey Lance is what we expect is going to be the starter for the San Francisco 49ers, hopefully in week 1 of next year, right? That will be 2023. And he has not been a full-time, full-season starter since 2019. Had the 2020 year, which is the COVID year, only played in 1 game for North Dakota State. Obviously sat last year, and now he's going to have a year where he only played a game and a half because of injury. You're going to be in year 3 of his rookie contract, and you're still not going to know what you have in Trey Lance. And it's also going to muck things up because on one hand you could say, well, he's not going to have the Jimmy Garoppolo situation next year. Is he not? Because are the 49ers going to be able to go into next year with nothing other than Trey Lance? I don't know if they're going to be able to. So depending on how the Niners do, if Jimmy takes the Niners to another division title, if he takes them to the playoffs again, what are you going to do? Sit there and just say, all right, see you, Jimmy. We're good on Trey Lance. Still don't know anything about him, but we're good on him.
Yeah.
I don't know if you could do that.
It's looking
This sucks. There's no way around it. This sucks.
You had your 2021 first-round pick is Trey Lance. Your 2022 first-round pick is Trey Lance. Your 2023, next year's first-round pick, is Trey Lance. And he's done 0 to impact your football team in the NFL. That's a concerning move. Like, John Lynch put his name to this pick when he made it.
Definitely.
And this is about as bad a start as they could have asked for to Trey Lance's career, unfortunately.
Yep. Super, super unfortunate what happened there. But now that's the reality that the 49ers are in. So we'll have to see how Jimmy Garoppolo plays the rest of the season. And that might dictate Trey Lance's future, unfortunately. Let's move on to a new segment that we're doing. You guys in the chat seemed to enjoy when we were bringing this up last week. So we're making a full segment out of it here on a Monday. This is called Dogs of the Week. I'm wearing a dog shirt. Mike's wearing a dog shirt. We're going to give you 3 dogs that we saw from earlier this week. We'll count down from 3 to 1, going from 3 to our top dog. See what I did there. Who's your number 3? Who's your number 3 dog?
Number 3 is the guy who, if I had to bet right now, will win Defensive Player of the Year this season. It's Micah Parsons.
And he's number 3?
And he's number 3 because number 2 and number 1 were
more dog. Had more dog in him.
Yeah, but four more pressures.
Okay.
4 more pressures, 2 more sacks from Micah Parsons. Just any time he had a one-on-one with either of the Bengals offensive tackles, it was over. he was that dominant as a pass rusher to single-handedly keep them in this game and single-handedly shut down this Bengals offense because Joe Burrow did not have time. Micah Parsons, it's truly amazing to watch him just out-athlete offensive tackles in the NFL level. Like, offensive tackles just straight miss him, not be able to touch him as a pass rusher. This dude's a different animal at the linebacker / defensive end position, and he is the Cowboys defense at the moment. He is carrying the shit on his back, and rightfully so. Like I said, he's probably your defensive player of the year at the end of the season.
Yeah, I mean, there were whispers about Micah Parsons being defensive player of the year last year as a rookie, right? And much like Mark Sanchez, second year in the booth, letting it fly, it feels like Micah Parsons is completely unchained, if you will. He's a dog off the leash. It just feels like everything that he is doing, he's having success with. He's that big of a freak athlete. He's that incredible of a football player. I think you're right. You've got to have him on this list. I'm glad that you gave him a shout out here. We have 3 different guys, and so it's not like I'm going to have Parsons later in my list. I purposely wanted to shout out 6 players. So number 3 on my list, a little bit of an underrated dog, but somebody I wanted to give a huge shout out to. Panthers linebacker Frankie Louvu. This dude's been awesome. End of the year, really well last year, and he has carried it into this year into a starting role with the Panthers on an every down basis, and the dude is showing up, man. He was undrafted in 2018 out of Washington State. Yesterday, he led the Panthers with 10 tackles, and for a game that I know a lot of people thought was a snooze fest, not a lot of really great football happening between the Panthers and the Giants, Louvu was awesome. 90 an elite grade, run defense grade of 78.6, pass rush grade of 83, and coverage grade of 80.4. He even had an interception that went right through his hands that should have been a pick 6. But when you throw on the tape of this dude from yesterday, he was all over the field, man. I loved his feel for coverage. It looked like his eyes were going exactly where they needed to be. He was dropping exactly where he needed to go. His feel for coverage was beautiful yesterday, and when he was attacking the line of scrimmage, he was doing it ferociously. He was somebody who every time the ball was snapped, his energy, his motor, and that dog he was playing with was evident on every single play. So huge shout out to Frankie Louvu. He's one of the most underrated players in the NFL right now. Really great start to this season. So I love to see it.
Yeah, Louvu, 12 stops, leads the NFL in defensive stops.
Fantastic.
Those are tackles that result in negative EPA for the offense. So Luvu's been exceptional. And like linebackers, man, how difficult is that position to scout and evaluate? Devondre Campbell, you saw him last year go from just this kind of journeyman, whatever, average linebacker to all-pro. Frankie Louvu looks like he's almost made a similar jump. Journeyman, kind of not heralded, never more than 250 snaps in a season until likely this season, and all of a sudden now one of the better linebackers in the NFL on tape.
All right, so who's number 2 for you?
Number 2 for me is going to have to be back to Thursday night. We're going to go Justin Herbert. Give him his love because he played his ass off, did not deserve that pick 6 that Gerald Everett hung him out to dry, and he was hurting. I've never seen. I was trying to think of the last time I've seen a play where a guy was so injured that he gave up on a play, but then kept playing the rest of the game. That throw he made with the broken rib up the seam was one of, if not the best throw that I saw all weekend, to where, Herbert, just a dog performance from him, deserved better, truthfully, than what he ended up getting.
Dog, absolutely. You're right. That was incredible performance from him. Anybody who has that kind of a gutting performance where you're a quarterback and you know you're probably going to take shots around the midsection, right? So you've got to stand tall in that pocket and still deliver the football. Gave him a chance to win it at the end. Man, you even take away the pick 6, which was, we can argue whose fault that pick 6 was. Gerald Everett? Was it the up-tempo? What was it? But you take that away, Herbert had a performance in which the Chargers could have gone into Arrowhead and gotten themselves a win. So got to be a dog for that. Number 2 for me. Lions wide receiver Amon-Ra St. Brown. A lot of people in the chat were shouting out St. Brown as their dog of the week, and I've got him here at number 2. St. Brown is showing that he has wide receiver 1 potential, man. And they are leaning on him for everything, and he is absolutely delivering. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 games now, going back to last year, in which St. Brown has seen double-digit targets. Yesterday, he led the Lions in rushing with 2 carries for 68 yards. Around that took him all the way down the field, which is beautiful. 9 catches, 12 targets, 116, 2 touchdowns. Again, in a win for the Lions that we touched on earlier in the show. This dude is an absolute dog. He's not the biggest guy. He's not the fastest guy. But what's the saying? It's not the size of the dog in the fight. It's the fight.
And the dog.
It's the size of the fight and the dog.
Yeah.
That's Amon-Ra St. Brown. That's Amon-Ra St. Brown right there. And they're going to lean on him, and he's going to continue to deliver for him because he's that good.
He's so crafty. 8 receptions week 1, he had 2 drops. He just is always open over the middle of the field for the Detroit Lions. You just got to have the time to find him. And, the Lions have given their quarterback the time to find him. So, Amon-Ra St. Brown, I bet him to lead the league in receptions before the season. He was plus 4,000 for some reason. 17 catches through 2 weeks. They're going to keep feeding them.
They are.
There's no reason for them not to.
No doubt about it. Looking in the chat, some dogs of the week. We have the Amon-Ra St. Brown's the suggestion there. Raymond said Garrett Wilson. Big. Garrett Wilson, 2 touchdowns. Big day for him. Big reason why Jets were able to get the win there. Liam said Aaron Jones. Big time dog. You said that they couldn't do anything to stop Aaron Jones last night, and that proved to be true. We got Devin White, a vote for Devin White. Walt says Devin White. He also said Devin White's best linebacker in the NFL, which Walt giving his stamp of approval there. We got a Christian Kirk, dog of the week.
Yeah.
It's good. Back-to-back games in which Christian Kirk has really looked like he was worth the money that Jacksonville gave him. I got to shout him out. I got to shout out Christian Kirk because we all made fun of that contract. And we're like, I'm sorry, Jaguars gave Kirk how much? And they're leaning on him, and they're reaping the rewards here. Who's your number one? Let's go to finish this out. Let's go to your number one dog of the week.
Number one dog of the week, Jalen Ramsey. Rams corner. Got dogged last week for his performance against the Buffalo Bills.
Indeed, he did.
Truthfully, was it like a little overblown? It was more mental mistakes than any Ramsey not being able to physically cover guys like Stephon Diggs. He still is that guy when it comes to one-on-one coverage. And we saw it against Brian Edwards. That pick was, we talked about the Asante Samuel pick and Brandon Staley Samuel pick you've ever seen. That pick was as impressive a play as you'll see from a corner going through the back of a wide receiver, over the top of him, not committing PI, just getting to the ball first is a damn difficult thing to do. Jalen Ramsey, though, ending the game with that. Hats off to him. That play was insane.
I mean, come on. Jalen Ramsey always had the dog in him.
Yeah,
right?
I mean,
he's playing corner, right? You get beat as a corner. That's just your job. No. You knew this dude was going to bounce back. He's one of those talented corners in the NFL. And so to see that clip of him saying, like, hey, I love it when they count me out, I mean, that's Jalen, right? That's who Jalen's going to be. You knew that he was going to bounce back. He's that talented enough to do well, to do so. My number one dog of the week. It has to be. I already saw some people in the chat talking about it. It's Mike Evans. Come on. Mike Evans versus Marshawn Lattimore. Every time these dudes line up, this is Evans against Lattimore. Lattimore was talking shit to Tom Brady, getting up in his face, and just like Evans did with Jameis Winston a couple of years ago, you touch my quarterback, and I'm going to make you pay. Evans comes in like an O-lineman and flattens Lattimore, and then obviously gets into a big skirmish. This is what he had afterwards when he was talking with the refs. You could read the lips. He said, "That's Tom Brady. What do you want me to do?" He's stepping up to Tom Brady. Of course I'm going to lay him out. Afterwards, he said after the game, he's like, yeah, it gets a little spicy when we come to New Orleans. Mike, how do you feel about Mike Evans and him letting the dog out a little bit?
Maybe the puppy dog of the week because he's cheap shot king there. Second time he's taken on Marshawn Lattimore when Marshawn Lattimore didn't see it coming.
Whoa. He saw that one coming.
Very big, tough guy.
So he saw that one coming.
A little bit, but it's like he wasn't fighting him. Mike Evans jumping in a fight that wasn't his.
He's defending his teammate. What do you mean? That's what you want. You want that guy right there.
I mean, he's going to get suspended for the next 2 games.
Lattimore was already throwing punches. He was throwing punches at Leonard Fournette, so it's not like he's innocent about it. Mike just came in and gave him a little help. You're at the bar. You're getting in a little scrap. You got your boys with you.
They got a couple big games coming up, and I think he's going to miss the Chiefs and the Packers game.
You think he's going to get suspended for both?
No. I bet so pattern of behavior. He's already done that once.
He has.
Maybe / twice.
Lattimore.
I bet he gets it. I mean, he got one last time. I bet he's going to get at least one this time, if not two.
I think he's going to get I think they'll suspend him for a game because, like you said, the precedence is there for it. But I mean, for them to suspend him for 2 games, one of them being the Chiefs game as that second game, I don't think they're going to do that.
I could see them just saying, like,
if they were playing like the Panthers in Week 4, maybe. I could see them upping it, but because it's the Chiefs, I don't think he's going to get suspended for 2 games. So, yeah, that's our dogs of the week. Let's see. Anybody? Lattimore's got to keep his head on a swivel. People are saying you act like Lattimore would stand a chance either way. I don't know. They've had some scraps. These guys have had some scraps. We got to vote for Joe Flacco, dog of the week.
Yeah.
A little bit of a pun there because it was in Cleveland. Yeah. You're going up against the dog pound, sitting there right there, talking smack to him. Cortland Sutton, dog of the week. It felt like they were scrapping back and forth. They were making sure that Cortland Sutton was actually involved in the game plan, unlike last week. Mark Andrews, big dog. Antonio said that. Got Lamar Jackson as a dog. I like this. This is a good segment. We might have to make this a recurring one. We got the chat. Everybody's talking about their favorite dog of the week, so we might have to keep this one going. I do want to move on, though, to address some 0-2 teams. And the reason why we want to address some 0-2 teams, we've got 4 of them. We got the Raiders, we got the Bengals, we got the Falcons, and we got the Panthers. Statistically speaking, if you take the last 10 years of data, I get this from Justice Mosqueda. He tweets this out, this graph. From 2009 to 2019, if you start 0-2, you have a 10% chance to make the playoffs. It is damn near impossible to make the playoffs after you start 0-2. Now, there's a lot of teams that you would expect to start 0-2, so there's not really much to debate. There's 2 teams on here, Raiders and the Bengals, who had playoff aspirations. Now they're 0-2. They're in a big-time hole here. So let's rank I want to rank these here, Mike. You give me your 4-1 power ranking of teams that are 0-2, and you tell me how worried you are about the teams at the top of this list.
Yeah, at 4 and 3, it's the Falcons and the Panthers. Whatever order you want to put them in, I'm not going to argue too hard. Their playoff aspirations have dissipated at this point. I think it's safe to say I don't see either of them. You know, if you're the Panthers, you can't beat the Giants. You ain't making the playoffs. And the Falcons, yeah, they faced a couple good teams, but I still do think they're too flawed, and especially at the quarterback position, to really continue to hang with, playoff caliber rosters. But then after that, I had higher hope. I thought the Raiders, really bad collapse from them, really ugly. They had to play, almost a flawless, have a lot of things bounce their way to be in the mix in the AFC West this season, and so far they have not. And the Bengals, I still think, can get right back in it. I mean, they are 1 game back in the AFC North. They've looked about as disjointed as you could possibly look, and still very, very close to being 2-0. They have been right in both of those games down to the end. So I'm still calling the Bengals a likely playoff team at this point. I think they figure things out. They're just too talented not to.
Yeah, you have to say that because you had them as your number 5 team last week when we were doing power rankings.
Yeah.
So you can't give up. You can't give up on them. You can't give up on them now. Look, I agree with you with the bottom 2. However, you want to order the Panthers and the Falcons. Take your pick. I think the Panthers are a team that does not know how to win. They're a team that has talent, but a winning culture and a winning identity is a real thing. Mm-hmm. Just going into close game situations, knowing that you're going to be the team that comes out on top, I think is absolutely a thing. And I don't think the Panthers have that right now. I don't think Matt Rule knows how to win. And therefore, I think the team is taking on the identity of the head coach, where they are talented. They have good players on the team. They don't know how to bring it out together to win games when it's all said and done. Falcons, I just feel like they're not doing things the right way, especially not getting Kyle Pitts the ball right. 3 targets yesterday is inexcusable. Mm-hmm. You draft this guy number 4 overall. On the flip side of things, you got Mike McDaniel getting Jalen Waddle 19 targets, right? You can't get Kyle Pitts more than 3. It's got to be simpler than that. I've got the Bengals at 2. I've got the Raiders at number 1. I'm more worried about the Bengals than I am with the Raiders because the Bengals' issues, I think, are less solvable. This Bengals offensive line is bad as of right now. And it's hard to think that it's just going to flip the switch and be better next week, right? This is a team that when you look at sacks specifically credited to the offensive line, they've got 8 sacks this year, which is the most in the NFL. 32 pressures against them, which is the second most in the NFL. And they have the 5th worst offensive line grade in the NFL right now for us. People are going to bring up, Joe Burrow takes his fair share of sacks. And he does. Joe Burrow's style of play is going to yield sacks. But both of these are problems right now. It's not just like it's one or the other. The offensive line is not doing what they need to do to keep Joe Burrow upright, and neither is he. So it's a tough situation right now. You saw yesterday when the camera caught Joe Burrow looking at the sideline telling Zach Taylor, don't go empty anymore. I need more protection than that. I got to be able to stand upright, and so I'm worried about that with the Bengals. On the flip side with the Raiders, the Raiders had an opportunity to beat the Chargers last week. And if it weren't for all of those turnovers from Derek Carr, maybe they win that game. They were close in the end even with all those turnovers. This week, massive collapse by the Raiders in the second half of their game versus the Cardinals. That game goes to overtime. Kyler Murray actually takes over with things that sometimes it feels like only Kyler Murray can do, and they end up getting the victory. But when you look at the Raiders, they've only got 1 sack right now as a team, but they're still 20th in pressures in the NFL. So, it's not like they're terrible there. I think that's going to turn around a little bit. And then you look at yesterday's game, Devontae Adams. He has 2 catches, I think is what he ended up with. 7 targets, 2 catches for 12 yards. Okay, he had a touchdown on one of them, but like that is a thing that is fixable for the Raiders. So what I see with the Raiders are things that aren't going well that are fixable. I don't know how fixable the Bengals' issues are in season. So that's why I do have the Raiders as my number 1 0-2 team, where I have more concerns about Cincinnati.
Yeah, see, I do think this offensive line still has talent, though. Like, they've played like shit. No sugarcoating. It's like a threefold problem.
Raiders?
It's like, no, the Bengals offensive line. Bengals offensive line, plus Joe Burrow, plus the play calling, all been bad. But then they're still in these games at the end. Like, I do think that as long as someone steps up there, whether it is Zach Taylor calling better games, whether it is Lyle Collins, living up to the contract he got this offseason, or Jonah Williams looking, even just like the guy we saw last season, who he's been rough through the first 2 weeks. So I do think there's places where it's available to turn this around in Cincinnati. And again, their defense has been solid. Like, that side of the ball is still very good. So we shall see.
There's a lot of debates in the chat right now of whether or not people think the Bengals are going to be able to turn around. So if you guys are watching and you're not getting in on the chat, you should do so, because it's a little conversation that we got in there. All right, time to talk about some Monday Night Football games, and we're going to do so by previewing some of the bets with our friend Kevin Cole. Before we get to those, if you guys don't have the PFF app right now, now's a great time to go get it. Go check it out. If you got an Apple device, you can go to the App Store, type in PFF, type in Pro Football Focus. You can get everything right in the palm of your hand. The best of PFF.com right in the palm of your hand. You get the fantasy football articles, you get the betting dashboard, you get all of the analysis from all the game recaps, the premium stats, things like that. You can see everything that we're writing about, how we are analyzing the game right in the palm of your hand using the PFF app. So check it out. Give us a review if you don't mind as well. 5 stars, of course. And tell us what you want to see more from the app, because we just put this bad boy out. It's only getting better every single week. And go check it out. All right, so we've got Kevin Cole on the line with us right now to preview the double header of a Monday Night Football game. Are we allowed to call it a double header if the games are on at like the same time?
Yeah.
Is it still like a double header? Because you almost, like, basically for most of the game you have to choose. Kevin, can we call this a double header, or is it just 2 games that have to be happening at the same time? I don't know if we can call it a double header if it's not back to back. Kevin, what do you think?
I think we can. I mean, any self-respecting fan is going to have multiple screens, I think, on for this one. So we'll catch them all, hopefully. The bigger question is, why wasn't this week 1 like previous weeks? Did they really want to highlight Russ's return? Is that what was going on? They didn't want to have any distraction to that. So it was confusing for me, the whole thing. Maybe
they thought that week 1 was already going to have enough hype, and that week 2 we wanted to still slingshot the primetime games a little bit. So maybe that's why. But we've got 2 games. We've got Titans-Bills. We've got Eagles and Vikings. These are 2 really exciting games. So I feel like normally we'll get like one of them is a stinker, one of them we really don't care about. And I don't think that's the case tonight. I think we got 2 really good ones. So, Kevin, as you are looking at these games, what's some best bets, some player matchups, some spreads, how you're analyzing these games? What are some things that you're looking at from this one with a betting perspective?
Yeah. I mean, as I discussed when going into Thursday night, the player props normally give you a little bit better edge, although I do have a side, so you won't be alone this time, Trevor, when it comes to making bets on sides or totals. I do have a side in the later game, but for the early game, there are a couple of different props that I like. Some of it's, let's talk some narratives here, because Josh Allen was getting a lot of grief for how much he was running the ball in week 1, up big against the Rams, leading rusher on the team. So I like Josh Allen to go under 7.5 carries in this one. It's not just because of that narrative that we're hearing. If we look at last season, he went under that amount 9 times out of the 17 games that he played. The season before, he went under that amount 11 times during the season. And in this particular game, they're at home. They're against the Titans, who are questionable at best. They're huge favorites in this game. I just cannot imagine, after spending 3 day 2 draft picks on running backs, including James Cook this year, that they're going to continue to say, you know what, Josh Allen is going to be our leading rusher week in and week out. I just don't see it. So I see him going under.
What do you think about that, Mike? With Josh Allen not leading the rushing attack, putting it in other people's hands?
I think that's smart with this Titans defensive line, especially since they stunt, slant, and get after it a lot in terms of like when you're running quarterback draws, when you're running quarterback stuff like that will lead to free hitters on your quarterback when you have teams that create that much chaos up front, to where I'd rather have a free hitter on, Devin Singletary than I would a free hitter on Josh Allen. So I do think the quarterback run game is not going to be part of their arsenal against this Titans defensive front.
Okay, what about on the flip side of things? What about for the Titans? What are you seeing in this one, Kevin?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going exactly on the flip side because I'm going over carries 21.5 for Derrick Henry.
Oh,
you might say this matchup and this game script doesn't favor something like that for Henry, but the thing the Titans have been consistent about in the past is whether they're up, whether they're down, whether it's the third quarter and they're down multiple scores, they give the ball to Derrick Henry. And again, if we're just looking at the historical trends, I know he only had 21 carries last week. He didn't look that great as far as yards per carry. I thought he looked a little bit better, though, as far as how he's actually performing out on the field. He's someone who consistently goes over this number. This is a depressed number for him in this matchup. So I think they're going to do that because if the Bills also play the same sort of defense they did last week, and who knows if they will or not, but if they're going to sit back, allowed to turn that front four at Tannehill, it's going to give them even more motivation there just to hand things over to Henry. And again, the Titans, if they're unsuccessful running, they just keep doing it. They just keep doing it. That's how they've had success. I don't think they're going to turn away from Henry right now.
I agree. He's their best player. He's still their best player. Any prop of Henry over under carries, if it's not at like 31, I'm immediately just like, they're going to run the ball with him. That's just it's what the Titans do. They could be down 28-3. I didn't mean that. I'm sorry, Falcons fans. That's literally the numbers that came into my head. They could be down 28-3 in this game, and they're still going to give the ball to Henry because he's their best player. Do you agree?
Yeah, I just don't see them having other options to go to on the outside.
Right. What are you going to do?
The Bills play a ton of press. Titans don't have receivers that you love getting off press coverage outside of like Kyle Phillips, and he's a rookie. So I really am worried about any semblance of downfield passing attack materializing for the Titans.
You and I have different sides of the spread.
I still like the Titans, though.
You like the Titans
because I like Derrick.
Plus 10.
Yes.
Which is a nuts line, and yet I still like the Bills to cover 10 points. I think this is the best team in the NFL right now. I said it last week. They're at home. They're coming off of that big-time win, traveling all the way to the Rams and absolutely whooping their candy ass. I think they're getting revenge on the Titans tonight, and I think that I don't think they let their foot off the gas pedal at all. So that was we were different. I saw in our notes on that one. Kevin, when we flip over to Eagles and Vikings, this is a fun one. This is some fringe or maybe not so fringe top 5 teams in the NFL that are going head-to-head here on primetime. What do you think about this game? I know you got thoughts on the spread as well as a player prop here for us.
Yeah. Let's start with the headline here. So the spread. So I like the Eagles laying 2.5 points here. 2.5 is a little bit of a deceptive number. I mean, anytime you go between 2.5 one direction and 2.5 the other direction, it's kind of the most meaningless 5 points that you're moving there. Sure, some games are decided by 1 point, by 2 points, but most are 3 and more. So I think they're clearly the better team. And as long as you can get them underneath that amount, at least for me, I think they're clearly the better team. The Vikings had a dominant win in week 1, especially considering the opponents, but I think the Packers were a little bit more disjointed and kind of discombobulated in that game offensively and defensively. And when you dig underneath some of the numbers from a success rate standpoint, the Vikings offense was more middling than you would have expected. They just had those big plays on busted coverages. I'm a little bit more confident in the Eagles' ability to move the ball, whether it's running or passing, against the Vikings defense than vice versa.
I agree. I mean, I think we're making too much out of the Packers absolutely blowing those coverages. Mm-hmm. I mean, do you feel the same, Mike? How much do you take away from the success that the Vikings had last week going into this week against Philadelphia?
Yeah, and I mean, they kind of did, outside of those blown coverages, outside the big plays, Justin Jefferson, they were thrown off, and they were allowing a lot of interior pressure in that game. And interior pressure against the Philadelphia Eagles is not something you want to be giving up.
Nope.
They got some DTs on that team that can get after.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Mike, let's get to our bets about this game. I got Justin Jefferson going under 7.5. I'm curious to what Kevin's thoughts are on this one when we throw it back to him, but I just feel like they're going to force feed Justin Jefferson. Those are my 2 Monday Night Football bets. I already talked about how I got the Bills covering. I think they're going to shellac them. And then Justin Jefferson, man, they're going to run this offense through Jefferson. And I think that over 7.5 receptions, to me, this is easy money. This is easy money. Unless the Eagles truly say, we are going to double Justin Jefferson every single time he touches the field. The Calvin Johnson on the goal line treatment, where there's literally 2 guys lined up in press coverage on him, then I think that he's getting over 7.5 receptions.
Yeah.
Shit, he might get it even if that's the case.
That would be the worry, right, is that they game plan everything to stop Justin Jefferson. Because, as we saw last week, there weren't a lot of other options really getting it done for that Vikings offense. But if they don't, and you're getting Justin Jefferson on these linebackers like he was last week against the Packers.
Shout out.
All of a sudden, he's going over that prop piece.
What's your bet for this game?
My other one, I obviously had the other side of the Titans one, but I like the under in the Vikings-Eagles game. It's 50.5. It's a lot of points. As we see, points are hard to come by this season around the NFL. Unders galore through the first 2 weeks. And just two teams who are run-heavy teams. When you have run-heavy teams, that means the clock churns faster. Going to have longer drives to be successful. The Eagles do a good job of putting caps with their zone coverage to where I just don't think we see a ton of big plays. And then at that point, getting to that number is just going to be difficult when everyone has to churn out a drive to score a touchdown.
Antonio says something tells me that the Rook, Traylon Burks, is going to surprise tonight.
Okay.
BJ says that AJ Brown's going off tonight as well. Kevin, what'd you think about that one? The Vikings, Eagles, the under on that one, as well as Justin Jefferson going over 7.5 receptions.
Yeah, I mean, I think both of them I'm leaning in the same direction as you guys are, especially when it comes to the under, because, I mean, it would have been weird for us to look back even 12 months, let alone even the end of last season, and say the Eagles have a 50-point total that we're talking about in their game, the way that they're playing.
Yeah,
it's just a big number. It's a big number for them, and again, it's a big number with the Vikings offense maybe being a little bit more susceptible to slow down than some people think. Now, if you want to talk about an obscure one, I also have Kenneth Gainwell under 1.5 receptions. Now, that's not going to get anyone excited. No one's getting excited about this one, but is in a game where I think Miles Sanders has really carved out the lead guy type of role here. He ran more routes, significantly more routes than Gainwell. He was the rushing guy there. Boston Scott is also creeping in there. And I guess I just don't see another game where A.J. Brown's going to be used a lot. Yes, I don't see another game where we have Devontae Smith with 0 catches and then Dallas Goedert with 3 catches. So for that reason, I just don't think there's going to be enough to go around. That's more of an obscure one, but I feel like it's one where you're going to get a little bit higher probability of winning than looking at a side or looking at a total.
All right, there we go. As always, fantastic stuff from Kevin Cole. Guys, go check him out on the Unexpected Points podcast. Does a great job covering the league from a variety of different angles, including a betting perspective, in which he is lending us his expertise for on this show. Kevin, appreciate you, man. Thanks for joining us.
All right, thanks, fellas.
I think the Bills are going to kill him, man. I really do.
10 points just a lot.
It's a lot of points, especially for a good team.
For a good team.
Good team, good coach, good defense. Yeah. But I think we get to find out that this Buffalo team,
and this was
is different.
Last year for the Titans, right? Every time they were that big dog where people didn't think they had a chance in a game, they'd come out and they'd surprise and they'd win. Like that was the Titans' MO, was that they'd show up for the big games until playoff time.
If the Titans win tonight, like just straight, forget cover. Like if they win tonight, we're redoing the dog segment and it's just Titans players. Yeah. Like it's just Mike Vrabel, ultimate dog. Every time we do the segment from this point on, we've got to shout out Mike Vrabel for being the ultimate dog of a head coach. Quinn, do we have a favorite for the question of the day for which head coach was going to be the first to get fired? Was it Matt Rule?
Yep, Chad agrees with you guys. It's Matt Rule.
I mean, I think that's fair. I saw a lot of flooding for Frank Reich, but I can't remember who said this up at the top of the show in the chat, but I don't think they're going to fire him in the middle of the season. Like, I don't think that this is going to be the first head coach fired. I don't think their organization works that way. And even if we're going to fire Frank Reich at some point during the coaching cycle, I don't believe it's going to be in the middle of the year. I don't think it's going to be first.
I agree.
I think it's going to be Matt Rule. What are you doing for the game tonight?
Just watching at the crib. Come on over.
Dude, I might have to do wings.
Yeah, I'd be down.
Buffalo team.
Oh, yeah.
Got it. I think we might have to. We might have to do the wings. Well, if you guys are out there watching the game, hopefully you're enjoying some wings too, or some fantastic food. Thanks so much for watching It's Just Football here on a beautiful Monday. We will be back tomorrow, same time, same place, to recap the doubleheader. I'll call it a doubleheader, Monday Night Football action. We'll have another question of the day. We'll have plenty of great topics for you guys, and we'll get you guys involved in the show as well. For Trevor Sikkema, that is Mike Renner. For everybody behind the glass, thanks for watching. We'll see you right here tomorrow at 11 a.m.
It's not about politics, it's about football.
This is a simple game.
We're going to run the ball, and we're going to pass the ball. He's just going to play football, really.
How good of a football player are you?
Not just get in and try to spin it. That's all.
I just love the game.
It really is the best time of the year.